What's up, guys? We are here for the 6th and final part of the RWBY Apron tutorial. The light at the end of the tunnel is here. We are going to wrap this up right now, and it's going to be awesome, and then you can wear it while you bake stuff or while you're just hanging out around the house. So at this point, we have an apron that has a finished edge, that has a belt, and the corset panels, and the ribbon, and the waist ties, all attached. Everything's there. It's awesome. So all we've got left are doing the neckties, and with the little cross details, we're going to do that too, and actually cording the panels. For the rose emblem thing on the waist, I'm not going to show you how to do that unless you tell me you want me to show you how to do that. I want that to be something that's removable, so this is easier to wash. So I am making it out of shrinky-dink plastic, and I'm putting a pin backing on it, and I'm just pinning it onto the belt. So if it's something you want to see how I end up making that piece, awesome. Let me know in the comments, and I will turn around and make a thing for it, but I'm not going to show you how to do a shrinky-dink plastic thing, because off the top of my head, I feel like it's probably not something you need instruction on. But let me know if I'm wrong and just full of crap, and I will show you how to do that. So let's start with the neckties. Hello, welcome to my floor. Here's the top of your apron. So to be able to get these ties attached, you want to figure out first where you want them in relation to your apron, what angle you want them, how deep you want them. I have set mine at a very, very slight angle. I don't want it to angle in too much because then when I tie it, it's going to pull these corners together and it's going to stick out from my chest and look kind of weird. So if I give it a slightly more flat angle coming off the apron, it won't pull quite as much and it'll stay a little bit flatter. So it's not like it'll function less good unless you like to try to eat stuff while you're doing your aproniness, because then it'll all just catch there. But as far as functioning as an apron goes, it'll just look funny and it'll just kind of get in your way. It's not bad or anything, but so I'm trying to make this look as good as possible. So that's why I'm kind of setting them out as a slightly more perpendicular angle, but I am angling them in just a little bit. As far as how far down these go, I've got about 2 inches from the black edge, not the ruffle, from the black edge of the fabric to the furthest out point of the tie. Because remember, these are kind of rounded. So it's about 2 inches there. I figured that gave me the kind of the look that I wanted and would give me enough room to work with to actually attach these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some thread. I'm going to do it on my machine so that way it's really in place. I'm going to do a zigzag stitch that is really, really short. So that means instead of being kind of a zigzag line, you're going to end up with a lot of zigzags really close to each other. So it looks just kind of like a block of thread. And I'm going to narrow the width so that way it's easier to hide. But I'm going to do that because then this sucker's not going anywhere. To hide that, because it's still going to be really obvious that there's just a giant hunk of thread hanging out, that's where the cross detail comes into play. I'm going to put my cross detail over that stitching so that way then it effectively goes away. For the cross detail, I am using iron-on appliques. I got these at Joann's. They're Simplicity brand. The way these work is there's a little bit of adhesive on them, and you just place them on whatever fabric you want, and you kind of pinch them down, and then you'll iron them into place. You can't just put the iron directly on it. I will show you how to do this properly. But you just put that on whatever fabric you want, iron it, and that'll make it semi-permanent, and then to keep it in place, you'll stitch it down. So over all of this, we're going to do a bunch of thread, I'm going to put this on, and then I'm going to stitch some more, so really this should never move, ever. Which also means it's important to get the placement correct, otherwise you're going to destroy your fabric trying to move things. So I figured out where I want things, I've pinned them into place, I'm going to throw them on my machine. To figure out where exactly I want to do the stitching, I'm going to take one of my little appliques and I'm going to figure out kind of where I want it on here. And once I figure out where I want it, I'm going to take my white chalk pencil and I'm going to mark where that is. Just very, very lightly, and I'm going to mark where kind of the top and the bottom is, and I know I have to keep my stitches between those lines. And then I'll measure how wide this is and know that my stitch width has to be less than that so I can actually cover it with this. So I'm going to mark all that, and do my block of stitching. I'm not going to show you the stitching part, but I will show you a picture of what it looks like when I am done, and then we will move on to actually applying the appliques. What I'm going to show you for applying the crosses will apply to any iron-on applique you ever have, ever. So if you're not using appliques for this particular project, if you found something else you want to use, if you want to be fancy and embroider it, then you don't necessarily have to watch this unless you think you'll ever use appliques later. If you're going to embroider it, you can skip this part that I'm doing right now with all the stitching the block. You can just use the embroidery as the stitching that holds this into place. So if that's what's going on, you can really just skip the next couple minutes. Okay, so now that our tie is sewed on, we're going to actually apply our little cross detail doing the applique. So the way you want to do this is there's one side that has the adhesive, the back side, and then there's the nice pretty side. So we're going to place our adhesive side down over the stitching we're trying to cover. Now this is an iron-on applique, so what that means is we're going to use an iron to press it down and make it adhere into place, and then we'll stitch it into place to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Whenever you're doing an applique, you want to put something between the applique and your iron. They call that a press cloth. A press cloth sounds like it should be something fancy. Really, it's anything cotton and preferably white, so that way you don't end up with any color transfer. So I can't actually find what I use as a press cloth right now. I usually use an old kitchen towel, so I just have a chunk of muslin, and I'm going to use this because it's white and it's cotton and it's not going to hurt anything. So, and the nicest part about this is that it's kind of see-through, so I can make sure I'm kind of still doing what I think I'm going to do. So my applique is where I want it. I'm going to gently put the muslin over it, and I have my iron. Now for your iron, you need to set that to the highest temperature that is appropriate for your fabric. Since this is cotton, we can crank it pretty much all the way to the top. So I've got my temperature all set on it, and I had the steam turned off. For appliques, you want to do a dry heat to attach it. So we're ready to go. I'm going to start pressing it, and go. So I'm going to press it from the front for 10 to 15 seconds, and then what we're going to do is we'll flip it over and we'll press it again from the back. Now because we have multiple layers here, it's not going to be really easy to press it from the back. It's not going to do a ton for us, but it'll at least kind of give us a little bit of extra adhesion. So we've got that there. Pull that off. Yep, that seems to be pretty on there. Now we'll flip the sucker over. And the nice thing is we know where the back side of it is because our stitching is there. So we'll put the press cloth just to be on the safe side. It's not necessary right now. The press cloth just kind of helps when you've got like raised areas you're trying to press over. It helps kind of keep the heat even and from any one part getting overly scorched and getting direct contact. When you're doing an applique on the back, when you're doing your back ironing of it, you want to do it for between 20 and 25 seconds. Again, this one's a little bit different because we're doing it through multiple layers, so it's not doing a huge amount of help here, but it will at least get some of our adhesion going to make it easier to stitch it in place in a little bit. So we got that. Move our press cloth. Let's flip this sucker back over to take a look. Ta-da! We've got our cross detail on it. You might notice my fabric looks like it might be a little bit discolored right here. That's okay. There's some fabrics that when they're exposed to heat, they change color a little bit. And when they cool down, they go back to being the normal color. I have no explanation for this. I'm sure there's something fancy and scientific about it, but I don't know what it is. So that is done in place. That's all set. So I'm going to do that to the other tie, and then we're going to stitch these on to make sure they absolutely don't go anywhere. Stitching them is not 100% necessary. It will stay pretty well like this, especially if you're not going to machine wash your apron, but it never hurts to make sure something is super permanent. So do this to your other side, and we will stitch them in place after that. Okay, so now that we've ironed on our little applique, we're going to stitch it into place. The ones I'm using are silver, and I bought some special silver thread to go with this. You can probably get away with white thread here. If you have white appliques, then you can use white thread, whatever floats your boat. I don't think white would show up too bad against silver. If you really don't want to spend the money for metallic thread, I know I will use it again in the future. You could probably just get away with gray thread as well. That's the same kind of color. But we're just going to stitch this really quick, so it's not going to be anything really difficult. Since this isn't a structural thing, this is just making sure it stays in place. I'm just going to do a straight stitch, just right down the middle. I'm not even going to worry about stitching crossways. You could if you wanted to, and the way I would recommend doing that is actually stitching this way, and when you get to the midpoint, turning it, going one way, turning it back, going all the way across, and then turning it again to continue on your way. to come back to the middle and then keep going down. I don't really feel like doing that again because this is not a structural piece, so I'm just going to do a straight shot down the middle. I already have my machine set up for it. I'm just doing a regular stitch, going down the center. I'm not adjusting my stitch length at all, again, because this is not a big deal. And come on. Focusing. Hey, that's better. All right. Just starting at the very top, going straight down the middle as best as I can. Not adjusting my stitch length at all. Same basic rules apply. And then what we'll do is for the threads that are still sticking out from where you start and where you end, I'm just going to thread them on a needle and shove them through the other side and tie them off. So, that is down. Ta-da! That's it! That's all I wanted to do, so you can't even really tell it's there, and it'll make sure it stays in place. So I'll get my handy dandy little scissors, snip that one, and snip that one, and I'll just pull them through and do the same thing on the other side so they all go away. You can see a little bit on the back it shows up. It's not all that bad, and my stitching from attaching my tie is covered. So that is that, my friends. Okay, so for our neckties, the end that we're going to tie with is still a raw edge. We haven't done anything with that yet. Because remember, we needed a place to be able to turn this right side out after stitching it. So we're going to finish this edge. The way we're going to finish this is the exact same way we handled the tie that we attached to the waistband, where we took this end and folded it inside itself. We're going to do the same thing here. Except this time, instead of stitching it to the apron after we've done that, we're just going to stitch it closed. So, this is going to be a seam line that you see, but again, it's at the end of the tie. No one's really going to notice it. So, I've got my end folded inside itself. I'm going to stitch this on the machine real quick. I'm just going to do a straight stitch just right down it. That's it. Make sure, whenever you're doing this, that you have enough fabric folded down in there that whatever depth of seam you're going to do, it's going to catch the edge that you folded in. Okay? So if you fold this in a good bit and you are going to do a really narrow seam, you know you're going to catch it. So I'm going to make sure I've got a little wrinkle. I'm going to get that smoothed out. Stick this in here. All right, so just going to stitch that. Go right off the edge. Alright, and there we go. Take care of the ends of our thread. What we're going to do is we're just going to thread this on a needle, and we're going to push it through to the other side. It doesn't matter really which side you do. And then we'll tie it off, pull the ends back through, tie it off again, and then put some fray check on both of those knots and cut it short. Yeah, you'll see the knots, but again, no one should really be looking this closely at your tie. So, that is how we take care of finishing our edges. Okay, so now we're going to do the cording for our corset, or our fake corset anyways. Remember that these are free-floating. I did that on purpose because there's not really a point to tack them down because we're going to have the cording keeping them in place. But if it bothers you, you can take just a needle and thread and just loop it through a couple times. And I say loop it through, push it through all the layers, just kind of in the corner over the seam lines we've already made when we finished our edges on these panels. And just do that a couple times and that'll tack it into place. It's not going to be very structural, but this isn't really a structural part of the apron, so that's okay. All right, so to actually do the cording, what we're going to do is we're going to find the middle of our cording. And this is going to be where we want to start. So there's different ways that people interpret Ruby's look. There's people who just do the crisscross of the corset and the ends disappear. There's people who crisscross it and have it tie at the bottom, and there's people who crisscross it and have it tie at the top. I'm going to have it tie at the bottom because that's just what I want to do. If you want to tie it at the top, take everything I say and just start at the other end. And if you want to make the ends disappear, you can follow this exactly, or you can flip-flop it, and it's not going to matter because you're going to make your ends disappear. So, I'm going to take the top, I'm going to take the middle of my cording, I'm going to throw all that cording over there, and I'm going to pin it so that way it's about halfway in between my two eyelets up here on the top. This is This is not a structural thing. This is just to kind of help keep things even while I go. Just because I want to end up with approximately the same amount of cording left to do the tie on each side when I get to the bottom. So this just kind of helps make sure that's going to be okay. So I'm going to pick one cord, one side of it, and just start with that. So I'm just going to go to one side first and pull it all the way through the top eyelet. So what I want to do is, since I've decided this is the side I started on, this is my first side, this is my second side, so I'm going to go through the odd number eyelets on this side, going from the top down into them. Because you also have the option of coming up and out through them. It's whatever floats your boat. I'm going top down. Just make sure whichever way you pick, you do it consistently. Just so that way you've got an even look. You don't want to be flip-flopping, and it's going to be one of those things you're like, what? It's just going through the eyelid. It doesn't matter which way. And you're going to say that, and then you're going to see it, and then you're going to go, oh yeah, I kind of see what you were talking about now. So I'm going through the top. I'm going to be on the odd numbers on this side and the even numbers on this side. So I did this one, and I get this out of the way. And I'm going to go down through the top in number 2 on this side. And down through the top in number 3 on this side, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now I finished doing the one side of the cording, so now I'm going to do the other, and pretty much this is just going to fill in the gaps that I left with the first side. So instead of going this way first, I'm going to go this way first, and so this will be my odd numbers and this will be my even numbers. Again, I'm going to go from the top down. If it is not really tight right now, don't worry about it. We will fix that. After you get this side going through, you can remove your pin. And now we'll play the fast forward game. Okay, so now we've got both sides started. So you'll see this is kind of loose right here. And we want to be able to pull it tighter. But to pull it tighter, this has to be locked down somehow. So this is where you can start getting creative. If you have thicker carpet, you can actually probably very successfully pin your apron to your carpet. If you have a dress dummy that's got the foam padding on it, pin this to your dummy. Although, pin it to the back of your dummy. If you pin it to the front, you'll end up with a more rounded shape on the front of this to pull these across. So this won't actually get tight. It'll get pulled across a curved surface instead of a flat surface. So this will still have more give. So if you pin it with this on the back, you'll avoid that. If you don't have either of those options, something else you can do is wear a shirt that you're not quite as fond of and pin the apron to your shirt. And you'll have to kind of work upside down, but pull it while you're wearing it, and that will also work. Anything you can pin this to, pin it to your bed, whatever, something that you can pull on that you're not going to destroy, that will give you tension so that way you can pull your threads tighter. If you don't have any of those, this is another option. Leave it on the floor and hold it with your feet. I am not kidding, I do this a lot too. I'm going to do it like this because, hey, why not? Pull all your cords tight, and once they're tight, we'll worry about tying our bow. If you're not tying a bow, after you are done pulling everything tight, I will kind of show you quickly how you need to handle that, but we're essentially going to hide the ends under what is left of the bottom seam of our panels. Everybody else, I'll show you how to tie it so that way it'll actually stay in place. Okay, so now that all of our cords are pulled tight, we can just tie it. Now, whether you're tying the top or the bottom, this is still going to apply. All we're going to do here is just start like you're tying a shoe, just a simple over-under. Pull it as tight as you can. If you need someone's help for this part, that's totally fine. we're going to do another knot. We're just going to knot this here, and we're going to do a bow on top of that. By doing that, we're going to make sure this actually stays placed. If we were to just tie a bow, because this is a satin cord, I'm assuming you got the same cord I did, it'll just continuously pull apart, and you'll be retying this all the time. So if we do it like this, then that possibility gets eliminated. So now I have a nice knot there. That will keep everything steady. Since that's tied in place now, I can stop holding this together with my feet. And because I have a knot, now all I'm going to do is tie my bow. Just a very simple bow. If you like doing the bunny ear method, if you like doing the round the tree, whatever the other one is, I don't know, whatever floats your boat. Just make sure you tie a bow. Mine looks kind of dumb because I'm doing this upside down right now because this is the top of the apron, but you get the idea. So we'll just tie that, and then just to make sure, if you really don't want to have to worry about retying this all the time, you can double knot your bow as well. So there you go. Then you've got your bow. If you have a bunch of extra cord and you want to cut it shorter, what I recommend you do is, at whatever length you want to cut this, is double knot the end. So, and don't even cut it and then knot it. Knot it, do it once, pull it really tight, do it twice on the same spot, pull it really tight, and then cut it. Cut it close to the edge, but not so close it'll immediately pull through, and put a butt-ton of fray check on it. Put a bunch of fray check on it. That'll keep it from unraveling and help keep the knot in place. Leave enough length here so that way if this doesn't quite hold and you have to retie it, you've got enough space to do that. Because eventually, especially if you are machine washing this, it will come apart. It's just the physics of it. But doing the double knot and doing fray check will make it last longer. If you're not tying this, if you're planning on hiding your ends, what you should do is this part where we knotted it and all that stuff. I'm going to undo the knots while I talk here. Instead of tying the bow, what you'll want to do Alright. What you'll want to do is bring your cord across like you're going to make the bow, but bring it all the way across and bring it so that way it goes under the edge of your corset. Now, you get to cheat a little bit if your belt overlaps these panels at all, then you can hide it under there, and then you kind of win. If you didn't do that, then you'll have to put it under here, and you want to kind of line that along that bottom seam, and what you're going to do is take this back to your machine, and you'll stitch this into place. Use a zigzag stitch and kind of encase this the bottom edge of your panel. That will keep that part sturdy. It'll look different than the rest of it, but it will keep the cord in place without you having to actually tie the bow. Alright guys, so that is it. You have a completed apron now. If you have any questions about how we finished anything up, if you were confused about anything that happened in this part or in any of the other parts, leave me a comment, or if you don't want to do that, get me on Twitter or Rooster Teeth or whatever, and let me know. I'm sure if you have a question, there are other people who have questions too, so I'd be happy to do like an extra video or two or whatever to make sure those kind of questions get answered, so that way you know what you're doing. But thanks for sticking with me. I hope you had fun with it, and now you have a nice apron that you can give to somebody or keep for yourself, and it should have given you kind of the basis of what you would need to know if you want to make any of the other ones. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.